I am fascinated by leading ladies who, though they played huge roles in their time periods and were really the leading ladies of history as it was unfolding around them, they have become footnotes in the historical record, and they've been sort of buried by the forward march of time.
Well, the last book was The Traitor's Wife, and I can't believe it's been just about a year ago since Allison Pataki was sitting here, New York Times bestselling author and daughter of former New York Governor George Pataki, and she's back with her brand new book, and we're going to put it up on the screen for you, The Accidental Empress. There it is. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me,
I
Steve.
can't believe it's a year. You don't look a year older.
Well, thank you.
You look younger. All right. This book, and you talk about your fascination with this topic and these kinds of women. You found an empress named Sisi.
Yes.
I think it's a fascinating story on how you became familiar with her and then became almost obsessed with finding out more about her and where that took you.
Right. So Sisi was the last great empress of the Habsburg Empire. So this was the family that ruled most of Central Europe right up to World War I. So if we remember our history lessons, the Habsburgs were the family that declared war, that started World War I. So hugely significant family, still playing out in history today, still having effects. And she was kind of, if we think there's this fascinating glimpse into leading ladies in history like Diana, or we love, the English royals, we love the French royals, we can't get enough. Sisi and the Habsburgs are the most fascinating, dramatic, dysfunctional ruling family you could ever meet, and yet we know so little about her here in the American audience.
And I was going to say, Americans probably never heard of her, but
Right.
After they read your book, they're going to find out a whole lot about her. What made her such an interesting subject? I mean, you became aware of her, and you knew that the people in her country worshipped her
Right.
to a great extent.
Right.
But then, if your investigation found that you wouldn't have done
Right.
it, what led you to say this is the next topic of my book?
Absolutely. So I am of Hungarian descent. Pataki is a Hungarian name. So 10 years ago, my family and we were traveling through all of the former Habsburg lands. We went back to the old Pataki farm in Hungary, through Austria, through the Czech Republic, and I kept seeing images of this striking young woman, Sisi. So I just did a little digging, wanted to know a little bit more about her and why she still to this day was venerated, kind of like this cult of personality over there, and why we Americans didn't know anything about her. So I just initially started some research, and what I found to be true is that history is juicier than fiction. And this was a story where the more layers I peeled back, the more fascinating it got. It is so not your typical fairy tale. It is so not your typical royal love story. Even just the title, The Accidental Empress, gets into it a little bit. She was never supposed to be the empress. So the circumstances of her life and her reign and the period over which she and her husband ruled right up to World War I is a really interesting, and I hope through historical fiction, fun way to learn.
I was just going to say, we should point out to folks that you write historical fiction, which is a very unique brand of writing.
Right, because not everybody might be inclined to pick up a dry biography. I would, a lot of people would, but
Right.
historical fiction is a way to make it really fun, accessible, entertaining, and then if I do my job correctly as the historical fiction writer, it then inspires people to go and Google and learn everything, or travel, or have their own then quest into the history.
And there's a connection here, albeit a small one, that the castle, the Disney castle, was influenced by her in an indirect way, her family.
Right. So we don't know anything about the Habsburgs. We know so much about the Tudors and the French and the Russians, not about the Habsburgs, and yet we know more than we think, because, for instance, her family did inspire the Walt Disney Castle. Her family gave us the waltz. The Johann Strauss was her court patron.
Right.
Some of the most famous artwork we know, a young doctor named Freud was in her capital just down the road pioneering this theory on psychoanalysis.
I think I've heard of him, yes.
Right, and then the really big one, which all Americans know, is that they declared war and started World War I, which obviously then plays out throughout history. But really, the Habsburgs are the most significant, most interesting royal family you've never heard of.
Yeah, it's amazing. And your passion for this kind of thing, tell the folks how you started getting into writing fictional history, or historical fiction.
So my background was actually in news. I wrote news for several years right out of school, and I loved history and I loved writing, and so I thought journalism was really a natural fit and a natural blend. But then in my free time, I just kept being drawn to kind of write some creative fiction on the side. And so in the case of both my novels, it's a personal connection. The stories kind of came to me and were a very personal passion project. Yeah, so Sisi is the Hungarian background, and
Well, it's a great read. It's exciting, and you're going to learn a lot about this empress, the empress that Americans never heard of,
Right.
which could have been an alternate name for the book, I guess. But the name of the book, there it is again on the screen, folks. The Accidental Empress, Allison Pataki. Great to see you. Thank you for coming again.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, we'll be back with more of the Steve Malzberg Show, folks, right here on Newsmax Television. Don't go away.